Hello, my name is Elizabeth Silkwood, and I am part of Group 3. We will be presenting the Ford Motor Company dilemma of moving forward with total virtual integration of their supply chain and other operations, or be at risk of being left behind. We will cover the challenges they faced and the programs they developed to stay competitive in the automotive industry. This table of contents just provides an overview of the main points that we are going to cover. Just some of the general issues, the facts and the challenges that the Ford Motor Company faced. Ford was incorporated in Dearborn, Michigan in 1903. It is the second largest industrial corporation in the world with revenues with more than 144 billion and 370,000 employees. So the challenges they faced was to continue with their old supply chain management or to adopt new technologies with this virtual integration. Since the 1970s, there were three major automakers facing growing competition from foreign-based companies like Toyota and Honda. So one of the challenges they faced was the emerging foreign-based companies challenging the top three automotive makers. In 1995, Ford created the Ford 2000 to consolidate its global operations. So their challenge was now to reduce redundancies, reduce costs, standardize their products and services, and to reduce their order to delivery days to less than 15 days. Ford had a lot of, or thousands of suppliers and in its supply chain. And another challenge that they faced was trying to consolidate to a smaller number of suppliers. And I will pass that on to New.
Thanks, Olivia. I'm going to cover about the stakeholders along the lines. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges they faced, and then I'm going to map it to some of the stakeholders mapping, whether they fall under the category of internal, external, or general. At this point of time, I've already made the categorization among those categories, among the stakeholders to say whether they're internal, external, general, just looking at the slides. I'm going to start from the first one, which is the internal. From a stakeholder standpoint, I'm taking into consideration all the senior executives at Ford, Terry Tukai, who was the director of SEM at the time when these critical decisions were being made, the complete Ford purchasing organization, and then the employees and the product division that was responsible at that point in time. And from a decision or the challenging standpoint, the critical issues that these executives or the stakeholders faced is pretty much around decision making to adopt on the new Dell model that was proposed. This is everything going back and resetting some of the expectation how the methodical automobile industry was evolving and moving on to the factors of moving them into a more IT-driven approach where systems would come play and enable some of the technology-driven initiatives there. And some of the other core things that was involved there is innovation that was kind of called as a risk at the point of time because the technology was just evolving. From other areas to consider is the IT role in the supply chain, which was pretty new for the standards at the time when Ford was picking up this level of initiative, and along the lines they need to align to some of the long-term goals that they need to take on. Along with that, adapting to potential or more integrated collaborative approach with suppliers was a critical factor, given that most of the purchase organization has to deal with a huge variety of suppliers, and they need to consolidate them into one seamless platform to make sure that everything works inside out. The next one is around the supplier and competitors from a stakeholder standpoint. Oh, sorry, before I do that, the stakeholder mapping has been done to internal. From a stakeholder standpoint, the supplier and competitors fall under the external category, and the challenges they faced is adapting to this newer technology standards in terms of employee relationship management, supplier management. Given that these things were coming out as new, they have to face a lot of disruption in the total industry as such, because all the major players were very much focused around the traditional way of dealing with supply chain and whatnot, given that Ford is trying to adopt onto the newer platform to what Dell was capable of. Other thing is adapting to some of the competitive dynamics and new standards, which they have to face, and mapping this to external stakeholder mapping. The last but not least, the stakeholder investors and regulatory bodies are the stakeholders. Major challenge for them is on the return on investment. How is the company going to ensure that this is going to happen? At the same time, they have to make sure that compliance and regulations are being kept in place without having to impact their day-to-day operations. And the overall employment structures were also being changing, given that introducing to IT with the level of capability, they were unsure of how the overall job market and economy is going to scale. With that, the stakeholder mapping, I'm going to put them under general. That's pretty much around the stakeholders within the fold at the time when they were adopting to these new changes. With that, I'm going to pass it on to my teammate here, Julian, who will talk about the theory and concepts. Thanks.
Thank you, Anu. So there are many overlapping concepts with both Ford and Dell. Dell's success is focused largely on the virtual integration, while Ford is a legacy system. While the two industries are very different, Ford was able to adopt Dell's key concept to ensure competitive advantage and to stay relevant within their industry via supply chain management. Dell capitalized on an increased shareholder value and customer responsiveness. Supply chain responsiveness is a key concept that helped better improve quality and reduce inventory cycle times, thus reducing costs to develop and build those cars. Ford also introduced the Ford 2000 strategy, which included dramatic cost reductions by re-engineering and globalizing corporate organizations and processes. These re-engineered processes helped create value by reducing redundancies and realized economies of scale in manufacturing and in purchasing. In 1998, Ford had profits over $6.9 billion with a return of sales of 3.9%. While utilizing FPS, Ford reduced the order to delivery, or O2D, from 60 days to 15 days, thus increasing capabilities, utilizing a pull-based system and reducing lead times. Other concepts and capabilities realized through FPS was better data for forecasting. Ford's IT groups led Ford 2000, which also helped with material flows and reduced inventories and bottlenecks. Other capabilities include Ford's public intranet site, which allowed for increased B2B or business-to-business capabilities and allowed for supplier visibility. Ford had a large existing supplier base and had to manage a complex network of business relationships. Ford actively tried to reduce and streamline those suppliers while focusing on SCM optimization. There was much more of a shift towards longer-term relationships with a subset of very capable key suppliers, or what they call their tier 1 suppliers. Additional cost savings were achieved by IT-enabled initiatives such as EDI or electronic data interchange links via Ford and their suppliers. This helped with inventory control management, such as just-in-time inventory, total quality management, and statistical process control that helped improve their operations. This transformed Ford into a lean and flexible operation that helped achieve better quality and higher customer satisfaction. That being said, I will pass it off to Aman to discuss symptoms and problems.
Thank you, Jillian. So for one of the symptoms for Ford was that they wanted to do a virtual integration to reduce their working capital, as well as give more exposure to the inventory on hand. They also wanted to continue to improve quality and reduce the cycle times while lowering the cost to develop and build vehicles. The problem with that was that Ford's current traditional process and production method had to be changed in order for them to take advantage of this new form of supply chain management. And Ford did that by launching a public internet site in mid-1995. By mid-1997, the number of visits to the site had reached more than 1 million per day. Another symptom for Ford was that they wanted their supplier network to be integrated. Currently it had many layers, so much more compared to Dell. So they wanted to make sure that they can control their databases of business partners, suppliers, as well as sub-suppliers. One of the problems in order for them to do that was that they needed to create a virtually integrated supply chain. So Ford and its suppliers can share information between each others, as well as prevent any kind of miscommunication or bad coordination between the supply chain partners. To resolve this issue, Ford teamed up with Chrysler and General Motors to work on an automated network exchange system, which aimed to create consistency in technology standards as well as processes and supplier network. It ended up reducing the cost to a lower cost. All the suppliers had access, so there was no need to manage different means of interaction with each automaker. Another symptom of Ford was that they wanted to eliminate organizational as well as process redundancies and huge economics of scale in manufacturing and purchasing. The problem with that was that Ford had teams on different continents, and it required for them to be able to work together as if they were in the same building. Ford was able to achieve that by launching a Ford production system known as FPS. FPS was an integrated system which was aimed at making Ford manufacturing operations more leaner, more responsive, and more efficient. With that, I will pass it on to Ramona.
So when we're looking at the alternatives and the evaluation criteria that Ford had to use when it was making a determination about the future of its supply chain management, one of the first alternatives is obviously to do nothing, maintain the existing supply chain processes and structure. And the pro to that would be that Ford had already implemented several techniques like just-in-time, among other supply chain management optimization systems that were experiencing some successes. However, the cons is that first-tier suppliers weren't able to keep up with some IT advancements, and so they weren't going to be able to maintain the standards that Ford was setting. And this also put Ford in a position where they may risk falling behind competitors who are more vertically integrated. The second alternative was to radically redesign the supply chain, modeling Dell's virtual integration approach. And the pros to that were that it would reduce working capital and the potential for obsolete inventory, and it would also function on an existing blueprint that, already established a successful program for supply chain revitalization. However, this would undermine Ford's purchasing organization. It would increase complexity and cost associated with supply chain management, and it would conceivably reduce the innovation and availability of diverse suppliers. However, the final alternative was to redesign the supply chain, but with a more customized, customer-centric approach. And there were several options available that would provide a design that had a market advantage. However, those would require a more accurate ongoing market analysis ability and higher costs from customization and reduced lead times. For the do-nothing alternative, one of the measures for the evaluation criteria would be monitoring share growth and making sure it wasn't declining. If they used virtual integration, they'd be looking at inventory turnover ratio and order fulfillment cycle time improvements. And then if they were focusing more on a customer-centric design, that would obviously be driven by customer satisfaction surveys and trends towards improvements. Next, we'll turn to Vince.
Okay, thank you, Ramona. I will be discussing recommendations and implementation strategies for Ford Motor Company supply chain strategy. As Ford seeks to increase its presence in emerging markets to keep Ford at the forefront of technological efficiency, it is imperative to maintain strong relationships with tier 1 suppliers and establish direct links with tier 2 suppliers. Implementing a web-based supply chain system will not only leverage Ford's robust IT capabilities, but also allow tier 2 suppliers to contribute to production progress and suggest future designs. This web-based system offers several benefits. First, it grants supplier access to Ford's central design database while allowing Ford to control the level of access, ensuring confidentiality of sensitive information. Second, by segmenting the system to individual suppliers, there's minimal risk of information breaches. Third, it requires minimal investment from suppliers, potentially reducing material prices and mitigating the risk of losing suppliers. To ensure the smooth functioning of the new system, Ford must assign an IT specialist as a liaison to coordinate all IT activities between suppliers and the company. Additionally, real-time monitoring of online orders is crucial to meet lead time requirements. Regular customer satisfaction surveys, performance analysts every 6 to 8 months, and annual executive meetings to review progress are essential for continuous improvement. By embracing a virtual integration business model and fostering strategic relationships, Ford can anticipate a more efficient and profitable future. Stakeholder engagement, an IT infrastructure overhaul, global standardization, and evaluation metrics will be pivotal in successfully transitioning Ford's supply chain strategy from push to pull, meeting customer satisfaction needs, and increasing sales globally. And now I'll turn it back over to Ramona.
Thank you, Vincent. Just a very quick overview of the case. So the Ford Motor Company, again, faces a huge dilemma of embracing the virtual integration of their current systems and re-overhaul of their supply chain, or continue in order to continue to stay competitive. In 1995, the Ford 2000 program merged all their operations onto one global organization. The goal of this program was to reduce their cost and improve their order to delivery time to less than 15 days. And now I will pass it on to Aman.
Thank you, Olivia. So what is Ford's current status? As of Q2 2022 press release, Ford Motor has reported a mixed financial performance, and it's due to challenges due to pandemic as well as supply chain issues as an after effect of the pandemic. But even with that, Ford came to over 158 billion US dollars in revenue in 2022, which is up from 136 billion in 2021. So they surpassed the pre-pandemic revenue numbers. The bulk of the company's revenue is from sales of its two main automobile brands, which is Lincoln and Ford. Ford is also the second most valuable American automotive brand worldwide as of June 2022. With that, Ford continues to grow with advancement into the electric car space, giving consumers more choice. And with that, I'd like to wrap this up. Thank you for listening from Group 3.